You ever been handed a plate of leftovers? I don't mean the good kind, not the Tupperware container packed with love that you take home for lunch the next day. I mean the scraps, the bits and pieces left behind after everyone else has had their fill. That's what they gave me. Not just food, you understand. They gave me leftover attention, leftover kindness. I was the afterthought, the seat at the edge of the table, if I got a seat at all. And for years, I ate it. I swallowed that lump in my throat along with the cold potatoes and told myself to be grateful. But there's a saying round here. Even a quiet dog will bite if you back it into a corner. And that Thanksgiving, they didn't just back me into a corner. They tried to make me disappear. They just didn't realize I was taking notes. They thought they were serving me scraps, but what I was really cooking up was a surprise that would burn the whole house down. Have you ever felt that? Treated like you're just invisible in your own family? Let me know in the comments, because this story, this is for you. It all came to a head at Aunt Millie's house. Thanksgiving. The one day a year you're supposed to put all the bad blood aside and focus on what you're thankful for. At least, that's what they say on TV. In my family, Thanksgiving was more like a competitive sport. Aunt Millie's house was the hub. It smelled like nostalgia and simmering resentment. You know the smell. A little bit of pumpkin pie, a little bit of passive aggression. The whole place was a wall of noise. The football game blaring from the den, the overlapping chatter and loud booming laughter of my uncles. My cousin David was the family's golden boy. He'd just gotten a promotion at his daddy's firm, and you'd have thought he'd cured cancer the way everyone was carrying on. My Uncle Robert was holding court by the fireplace, his voice echoing through the house. "Until I tell you, this kid's got the Midas touch. Everything he touches turns to gold. Right, David? My boy." "Just tried to make you proud, Dad." The whole room practically swooned. I was standing over by the dessert table, arranging the pies I'd brought. No one had said a word about them, of course. I might as well have been the caterer. Then came the call, the one I dreaded every year. "Aunt Millie, all right, everyone, soup's on. Come and get it before I throw it to the dogs." And just like that, it was a stampede. A herd of locusts in cable-knit sweaters. Uncle Robert, first, naturally, piling his plate so high it looked like a small mountain. Then David, then his sisters, then my other aunts and uncles. They moved like a well-oiled machine, a pack that knew the pecking order, all scraping and clattering serving spoons against the glass bowls. I hung back. I always did. It was easier than trying to squeeze in, getting elbowed out of the way for the last scoop of sweet potato casserole. I waited, listening to the muffled sounds of their feast from the other room. "Uncle Robert, Millie, you've outdone yourself." "Aunt Sarah, oh my God, David, you have to try this stuffing. It's divine." By the time the noise died down and they were all seated, I walked into the dining room. The table was a war zone. Spills on the tablecloth, serving platters in disarray. And in the kitchen, on the counter where they'd put the main dishes, was the aftermath. The turkey platter had been picked clean, leaving a sad-looking carcass. The mashed potatoes were cratered, with just a few dry scrapings left on the side. The gravy bout had a thin, congealed layer at the bottom. My cousin David saw me standing there. He had a smug little smirk on his face, a piece of turkey hanging off his fork. "Hey you, finally decided to join us? Might be some scraps left if you're quick." He didn't say my name, just "you." And then he gestured with his fork towards the picked-over remains. My Aunt Millie, bless her heart, was too busy fussing over her precious grandchild to notice. Or maybe she just chose not to. In my family, not noticing was a survival skill. something inside me it snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was a quiet, cold, clean break. I looked at the platter, at the greasy bones and the smear of potatoes. I looked at their happy, oblivious faces, all gathered around the warmth of the table. And I was out here, in the cold of the kitchen, being offered the leftovers like a stray dog. A single tear threatened to fall, but I blinked it back with a surge of cold anger. Shame is a hot, nasty feeling. It crawls up your neck and makes your ears burn. For a second, I just wanted to run, to get in my car and drive until the state line was a distant memory. But then, the shame curdled into something else, something hard and sharp. Anger. No, not anger. It was resolve. I picked up a plate, a clean one, and with everyone watching, I walked over to the platters. I didn't take anything. I just stood there for a second, letting their eyes fall on me. Then I turned and walked back to the dessert table, picked up my purse, and headed for the door. Aunt Millie? Honey, where are you going? You haven't eaten. I stopped at the door, my back to them. I didn't turn around. I didn't want them to see the look on my face. I've lost my appetite, Aunt Millie. You all enjoy. The front door clicked shut, and I could feel the silence fall over the dining room behind me. The drive home was quiet. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was ice cold, clear as a bell. For years, I had accepted my role as the family footnote, the quiet one, the one who didn't make waves. Well, the tide was about to turn.
That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a notebook. They wanted to treat me like I was nothing, like I was only good for what was left over. Fine, I could work with that. They had served me an insult. I was about to serve them a lesson, a full 5-course meal of karma, and they would eat every last bite. But that night, I made a plan that would change everything. The next big family gathering was Christmas Eve dinner, back at Aunt Millie's. It was the perfect stage. In the weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I became a culinary mad scientist. My plan wasn't just to get revenge. That's too simple, too brutish. No, my plan was a work of art. It was a Trojan horse delivered on a porcelain dish. I decided to make a casserole, the quintessential potluck dish, the kind of thing nobody really questions. But this wouldn't be just any casserole. This would be my masterpiece, my secret recipe. The secret wasn't some exotic spice or a rare ingredient. Oh no, the secret was much more personal. For years, my family had this running joke about how much they all hated parsnips. Hated them. My great-grandma Rose used to put them in everything, and ever since she passed, they talked about parsnips like they were poison. Uncle Robert would go on and on about their soapy, bitter taste. David said they were food for peasants. It was one of their little inside jokes, another way to feel like a special, exclusive club. So, I bought 10 pounds of the freshest, sweetest parsnips I could find. I spent an entire afternoon meticulously preparing them. I peeled and chopped them with precision. I roasted them until they were sweet and caramelized. I pureed them until they were silky smooth. I blended them with roasted garlic, cream cheese, a touch of nutmeg, and some high-quality Gruyere. I made them utterly, completely, deliciously unrecognizable. The parsnip, their culinary villain, was now the hidden hero of the creamiest, most decadent, most sophisticated-looking gratin you've ever seen. I topped it with toasted breadcrumbs and fresh thyme. It looked like something straight out of a food magazine. It was my message in a bottle, or rather, my message in a casserole dish. The message was simple. You don't know as much as you think you do. For any of you who are foodies, this is for you. Making sure your revenge tastes good is half the battle. If you agree, let me know. And hey, maybe hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the main course. Christmas Eve arrived. The air was cold and crisp. I walked into Aunt Millie's house holding my casserole dish like it was a bomb, right into the usual din of a Christmas party. Carols playing, glasses clinking, the same loud laughter. The reaction was immediate. Cousin Sarah, "Oh wow, what is that? It smells amazing." She peered at the dish, her nose twitching. I just smiled. "Just a little something I whipped up, a new recipe." I placed it on the buffet table right between the honey-baked ham and the 7-layer salad. And then I stepped back and watched. It was David, of course, who took the bait first. He served himself a huge spoonful, his eyes skeptical, but his appetite clearly won over by the aroma. I watched him take a bite, and it was like time slowed down. I saw his expression shift from suspicion to pure, unadulterated pleasure. Whoa, okay, what is this? This is incredible. That was the signal. The dam broke. One by one, they descended upon the casserole. Uncle Robert, Aunt Millie, everyone. And the praise? The praise was a symphony to my ears. Uncle Robert, "Holy cow, kid, where'd you learn to cook like this? This is better than the stuff they serve at the country club." Aunt Millie, "I need this recipe. It's the best thing on this table, hands down." I just smiled and shrugged, playing the part of the humble cook. I watched them go back for seconds, then thirds. I watched David scrape the last creamy remnants from the corners of the dish with the serving spoon. They were devouring their own prejudice, slathered in cheese and cream. They were loving the very thing they'd spent years despising. My heart was pounding in my chest, a wild, triumphant beat. They were hooked. Line, sinker, and casserole dish. They had no idea what was about to hit them. Dinner was winding down. The plates were being cleared, but the talk of the table was still my casserole. They were practically begging for the recipe. It was Aunt Millie who cornered me by the sink, dish towel in hand. "All right, young lady, spill the beans. I'm not letting you leave this house without telling me the secret. Is it some fancy French potato? A special kind of cheese?" The whole family quieted down to listen. All eyes were on me. David was leaning against the counter, still licking his lips. Uncle Robert was sitting at the table, patting his full belly. This was it. Showtime. I took a deep breath, letting the silence hang in the air for just a beat too long. I looked around at their expectant faces, a slow smile spreading across my own. "I'm so glad you all liked it so much. It means a lot." Yeah, it was great. So what's in it?" I let my eyes land on David, then on Uncle Robert, then back to Aunt Millie. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a knife. "The secret ingredient? It's simple, really. It's parsnips." Silence. Utter, deafening silence. A fork clattered loudly onto a plate, the only sound in the room. The color drained from Aunt Millie's face. Uncle Robert, who had just been praising it, suddenly looked green. David's smug smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure, horrified betrayal. "Parsnips? No way. You're lying." "Nope. 10 pounds of them, roasted, pureed, delicious, right?" Uncle Robert slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses jump. "What in the hell is wrong with you? That's not funny. You know we all hate those things. You tricked us." The hypocrisy was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The shock wasn't that they'd eaten parsnips. The shock was that they'd been wrong, that their sophisticated palates they were so proud of couldn't tell the difference. I had exposed them. "Tricked you? I brought a dish to a family dinner, a dish you all said was the best thing on the table, a dish you went back for thirds for. It's not my fault you liked it. Or is that the problem? That you actually enjoyed something you decided, without any good reason, to hate?" David stood up straight, his face flushed with anger. "This is just like you. always trying to be clever, always trying to make people feel stupid. You did this on purpose to humiliate us." The pot was calling the kettle black, and it was beautiful to watch. He was a cornered animal, lashing out. And he was right about one thing: I did do it on purpose. Humiliate you. David, is that what this feels like? To be made to feel small? To be made to feel like your opinion doesn't matter? Huh. It's funny. That feels familiar. I let that hang in the air, a direct reference to the Thanksgiving leftovers. I saw a flicker of understanding and shame in Aunt Millie's eyes, but David was too proud, too angry. "This is not over. You think you're so smart." He was trying to stare me down, to reassert his dominance as the golden boy, but I wasn't the same person who had slunk out of this house a month ago. I held his gaze. "Oh, David, you have no idea. The casserole was just the appetizer." I reached into my purse, which I'd set on the counter. My hand closed around a folded set of papers. The air in that kitchen was electric. It was so tense you could taste the metal. David was staring at my purse, then back at me, his face a mixture of confusion and fury. He thought my surprise was another trick, another gotcha moment. He had no idea how much bigger this was.
"What's that? What'd you bring now? A pie made of dirt?"
Worse. It's a copy of my employment contract. I unfolded it and laid it on the counter. The corporate letterhead of a very well-known, very successful software company was right at the top. My name was printed clearly under the title Senior Project Manager.
"What is this? What does your job have to do with anything?"
My whole life, they'd treated my career like a little hobby. I worked with computers, something they didn't understand, so they dismissed it. They knew David's salary down to the penny, but they probably thought I made minimum wage. You see, I've been leading a new expansion project for the last 6 months, a huge one. We're opening a new logistics hub. It's going to bring about 300 jobs to the region. I let that sink in. I could see the gears turning in Uncle Robert's head. He was a businessman. He understood numbers. The final step is securing the contracts for construction and supply. Big contracts. Life-changing money for the local firms that get them. I tapped a finger on the page. Then I looked at Uncle Robert, then at David. "Your firm put in a bid, didn't it, Uncle Robert, for the construction contract?" The blood drained from his face. David looked at his father, his mouth hanging open. He hadn't known.
You're on the selection committee?"
Committee? I gave a small, humorless laugh. "Uncle Robert, I'm not on the committee. I am the committee. The final decision rests with me. It's my project. My signature is the one that goes on the bottom line." You could have knocked them all over with a feather. The family's golden boy, the one with the Midas touch, had been angling for a promotion based on landing this exact contract. He'd been bragging about it for months, about how he was a shoo-in. And his father, my uncle, had been counting on it to save his struggling firm. And the whole time, the power to make or break them had been sitting quietly at their table. The person they treated like wallpaper, the person they fed scraps to. David was the one who finally broke the silence, but the voice that came out wasn't angry anymore. It was small, broken.
Why didn't you say anything?"
Why didn't I say anything? My voice cracked, the emotion I'd been holding back finally spilling out. When would I have said it, David? When you were all talking over me? When you called me you and pointed me to the leftovers like a dog? When was I supposed to bring up my career? In between you bragging about your golf score and Uncle Robert talking about his new car? Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and angry. This was never about one dinner. This is about my entire life.
Do you have any idea what it's like to sit in a room full of your own blood and feel completely and utterly alone? To bring pies you stayed up all night baking and not have a single person even acknowledge them? To be the butt of every joke, the family charity case, the one everyone feels sorry for but no one actually respects? My words hung in the air, raw and bleeding. And then the most unexpected thing happened. My Aunt Millie started to cry. Not loud, but quiet, heartbroken sobs.
I'm so sorry, honey. I'm so sorry. I never saw it.
It's how we've always been. Your father and I, we had our own rivalry. I guess we passed it down to the kids. I always pushed David so hard because I wanted him to be better than your dad. And you were just his kid. It's not right, but it's the truth. It was a confession, but it felt like an excuse, a generational grudge I'd been paying the price for. But it was David's confession that truly floored me. He wouldn't look at me. He was staring at the floor, his face pale.
At Thanksgiving, when I said that about the scraps, I had just found out that morning that our firm's initial bid for your company's project had been rejected. The one that I was in charge of. Dad was so angry. I felt like such a failure. And then you walked in, and I don't know, I took it out on you. It's what I've always done.
He finally looked up at me, his eyes swimming with a misery I'd never seen in him before.
I've always been jealous of you.
I actually laughed, a short, sharp, disbelieving sound. Jealous? Of me? David, you have everything. The perfect life, the doting parents, the praise.
I have what they gave me. The job at Dad's firm, the car they helped me buy. It's all from them. You went out and did it all on your own. You left this town, you built a life, you earned your success. You never needed anyone. I've always needed their approval. Always. Seeing you so independent, it always made me feel small. So I tried to make you feel smaller.
The room was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. The whole architecture of my family, the one I thought I knew, was crumbling around me. The golden boy was built on insecurity. The booming patriarch was haunted by his own brother. It was a house of cards. But there was one more card to fall. The one that would change the foundation completely. It was my Aunt Millie. She had stopped crying and was looking at me with a strange, pained expression. There's something else. Something you don't know. The reason I let it happen. One confession left me shaking to my core. I braced myself. What else could there be? The air was so thick with confessions, I felt like I was suffocating. Aunt Millie wrung the dish towel in her hands, her knuckles white. She looked at my Uncle Robert, who just gave a slow, weary nod. This was a secret they had carried together. It was your mother. My mom. She passed away when I was 19. The official story was a heart attack. She was the one person in the family I had felt truly close to, and losing her had untethered me. What about her? What does she have to do with this? Before she died, she knew she was sick, sicker than she let on. She sat me and your uncle down, and she made us promise her something. She took a shaky breath. She was so proud of you, of how smart and independent you were, but she was terrified. She said the world was a cruel place and that it would chew you up and spit you out if you weren't tough enough. She thought we were all making you soft. I just stared at her, uncomprehending. Soft? I'd spent my whole life trying to grow a thicker skin. She made us promise to be hard on you, to knock you down a peg, to give David the praise so you'd have to fight for it. She thought if you were used to being treated poorly at home by people who secretly loved you, that you'd be strong enough to handle it from strangers out in the world who didn't. It was her twisted, broken way of trying to protect you, to forge you in a fire so you wouldn't break. The floor dropped out from under me. All those years, all the snide comments, the exclusions, the casual cruelty, it was a promise made out of a warped, terrified kind of love. It didn't make it right. God, it didn't make it right. It was a horrible, misguided plan that had caused so much pain, but it recontextualized everything. They weren't just villains in my story, they were characters following a script written by a ghost. I looked down at the contract on the counter. This piece of paper I had brought in as a weapon, this symbol of my success, the thing I had achieved despite them. And I realized my mother, in her own terribly flawed way, had gotten what she wanted. I was tough. I was strong. They had tried to make me eat scraps, and I had learned to cook my own feast. And in that moment, I found my voice. Not the angry voice from before or the hurt one, but my own. Calm. Clear. Final. She was wrong. She was wrong to ask that of you. And you were wrong to agree. I looked at each of them. You didn't forge me. You wounded me. And I didn't get strong because of you. I got strong in spite of you. Everything I have, I built for myself on my own terms, because I had to. Because I refused to be the person you all tried to make me be. I folded the contract back up and slid it into my purse. The finality of the sound echoed in the silent room. I'm not going to tear up your bid, Uncle Robert, and I'm not going to approve it. I'm recusing myself from the decision. I'll hand the project off to my director in the morning and cite a conflict of interest. Your company's bid will be judged on its merits by someone impartial. That's more fairness than you ever showed me. I zipped up my purse. The real feast, the thing I was actually hungry for, wasn't turkey or casserole. It was respect. It was being seen. And tonight, for the first time, I think you see me. I looked around at their faces, shocked, ashamed, broken. They were finally truly reflecting on the roles they had played. I didn't need their apology to feel whole. I didn't need their approval on a contract. I had served myself the one thing I'd been craving my whole life, self-worth. And it tasted better than any meal they could ever cook. I turned and walked to the door. No one tried to stop me this time. As my hand touched the doorknob, I paused. This was the crossroads, the moment where a family either shatters into a million pieces or starts the long, painful work of gluing themselves back together. But was it enough to heal us or break us for good?
I walked out into the cold Christmas air, and I took a deep breath. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 20 years. The aftermath, well, it's been messy, as real life always is. There was no magic hug that fixed everything. My relationship with my uncle and cousin is formal. We're civil at holidays. We're testing the waters of a new kind of honesty. Their company didn't get the contract, by the way. A better firm did. But learning to stand on their own 2 feet without the guarantee of a leg up might be the best thing that ever happened to them. My relationship with Aunt Millie is healing, slowly. We talk on the phone now, really talk. She's trying to undo decades of looking the other way. Some days are better than others. But the most important change happened in me. I stopped waiting for a seat at their table. I built my own, and I get to decide who has a place there. I am not an afterthought. I am the main course. So I have to ask you, if your family served you leftovers, that plate of scraps and disrespect, would you swallow it or would you fight back? What would you serve them in return? Let me know your story down in the comments below. I read every single one. Your stories matter.
And if you appreciate stories about the underdog finally finding their voice, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because the tale I've got for you next week is a real barn burner. It involves a dusty old attic, a hidden diary, and a family secret that was meant to stay buried forever. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening. Be kind to yourselves, and don't ever let anyone make you feel like a leftover.